If you claim to be trans and that you have no dysphoria, you are without a doubt one of the biggest obstacles transgender people face. You speak over us, claim that you understand our experiences, when in reality you haven't even the slightest clue what it's like, and then shame and scold us when we disagree with the nonsense spewing from your mouths. A fellow trans person explained the issue with Tucutes very well. A Tucute is someone who believes that you do not need dysphoria to be trans. The word was originally coined by a cisgender girl on Tumblr pretending to be a trans girl. She later admitted that she did it for attention. There is no situation in the world that would make that an okay thing to do. It is almost certain that trans people will face some kind of discrimination, violence, or bigotry at some point in their lives. So why would anyone choose to identify as transgender when they don't experience any dysphoria? How is this in any way different from an edgy teenager identifying as an attack helicopter online or self-diagnosing OCD? Some of you will be new to all this, and so I first want to go over what Tucutes believe, exactly who they are, and why they are a huge problem. Like I mentioned earlier, Tucute ideology is the belief that dysphoria is not a requirement for being trans. Already, there is an issue with that statement. If dysphoria is not needed, then literally anyone can claim to be trans. Does this not imply that being trans is a choice? Meaning that trans people choose to feel uncomfortable and that they choose to live the way they do. This is an argument that transphobic people use as a justification for conversion therapy, that somehow trans people can be converted. So then what do Tucutes think is needed to be trans? According to them, if you want to be trans, then you are trans. This type of thinking is extremely harmful for obvious reasons. If you wish you are trans, you have some obvious issues. Tucutes also say that it is okay to transition for aesthetics or to make cis people mad. This is just the woke leftist teenager equivalent of triggering the libs, and transgender is not an aesthetic, nor is depression or anxiety. Calling yourself trans if you do not have dysphoria is appropriating a medical condition. I cannot believe I even have to say this. Being trans is a real medical condition that requires medical attention. It is not a social statement, it is not an act of rebellion against the oppressive gender binary, and it is not a trend. What about a disconnect between your brain and your body? That is a sign of dysphoria. Tucutes often think that dysphoria means constant suffering, but that is just not true. The definition of gender dysphoria is as follows: the condition of feeling one's emotional and psychological identity to be at variance with what was assigned at birth. What this means is that someone with dysphoria is not necessarily miserable 24/7. In fact, wanting to be the opposite gender is a form of gender dysphoria. But without it, what is the driving force to pursue a medical transition? The answer lies in social media and privilege. Beginning in the early 2010s, oppressed groups began gaining a higher social standing as a direct result of social justice activism becoming more popular. This began the demonization of privileged groups. Said groups felt the need to feel special again, and so they adopted the identities of minorities. This is why being trans is such an enticing thing for them. It gives them access into our spaces, as well as the attention they crave, but without the inconveniences that being trans will get them. From what I have seen, there are two kinds of Tucutes, but first I just want to say that not every Tucute is the same. It is possible for an uneducated cis person to mistakenly believe Tucute ideology, since that is the view most mainstream trans communities spew out. But what I am about to say next characterizes what I see, and that only represents a fraction of society. The first one is the dysphoric Tucute. This person has dysphoria, but is in denial. They think they are non-dysphoric because Tucute spaces push the idea that dysphoria needs intense self-hatred, which is not true. This person may also know that they have dysphoria, but still think that it is not needed to be trans. Although it does not stop them from being harmful, these people are still trans. Yet they still continue to spread their philosophy. The second one is the trender Tucute. This person is by far the more harmful of the two. They claim to be trans, yet experience no discomfort or disconnect at all. From here, they either decide to transition or they don't. Those who do gobble up resources in vital healthcare, leaving actual trans people on waiting lists for years. They do no research whatsoever on hormones or surgery, and then a few months or even years into their rushed decision to take testosterone or estrogen, they develop actual dysphoria. They then detransition while simultaneously blaming trans people for their own terrible decision-making and childish frame of mind. They claim that trans people brainwashed them and tricked them when they were the ones who fooled everyone around them. Now, I am not talking about cis people who mistakenly believe that they were trans. I mean the people who, despite knowingly not having dysphoria, decided to transition anyway. The too cute who doesn't pursue transition parades around calling themselves trans, all the while completely fine with their current physical anatomy. These gender benders dilute the meaning of being trans into miscellaneous queerness, to put it one way. To them, it's simply an aesthetic, a trend, the new goth or emo. This already has disastrous effects. Parents of dysphoric kids will take one look at that and presume it's just a phase that they will grow out of. These kids are some of the most vulnerable people among us. To deny transition to real trans people is to deny them of life. By the way, to those of you who cannot access the healthcare you need either because of money issues, an abusive household, or any other reason, I wish you the best of luck and sincerely hope that you will soon get the necessary help. With that being said, Tucutes, and trenders especially, have absolutely contributed to the decline of acceptance of trans people. It is extremely heartbreaking to see that people in the last few decades have fought so hard for our rights only for it to be used to get oppression points by attention-seeking individuals. Well, I think that's enough for this video. Consider subscribing if you enjoy this content. If there are topics you want me to cover, trans issues or not, put them down in the comments below. Feel free to provide feedback. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.